A very warm welcome to everyone. ICM is delighted to host the first panel discussion of the year. So, a very happy new year to everyone who has joined us today. At the outset, before I proceed to welcoming all our panelists and speakers, a few ground rules which remain the same for all our discussions. I would request everyone to kindly turn off their mics so that we can listen to the panel without any problems. And in case there are any connectivity issues, you may also turn off the camera so that the connection is all right during the course of the discussion. So those are a few background rules we need to keep in mind as we proceed. Let me at the outset welcome Sri Gurucharan, who is the Director of Public Affairs Center and is a retired civil servant. Additional Secretary MSD Sri Atul Kumar Tiwari, JSOIA 1 Sri Abbagani Ramu, Additional Central PF Commissioner Dr. VP Singh, Kuldeep Kumar, who is principal as PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Sri Vikram Shroff, who is the head HR laws from a legal firm Nishit Desai and Associates. So this is our distinguished panel for the day, and we really look forward to hearing today's discussion, which sort of looks at bridging the gap in a very important area for migration and mobility, which is the social security agreements. So with those few introductory remarks, I'd like to invite our JS and CEO of ICM, Sri Abbagani Ramu, to make welcome remarks. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Surabhi. Good afternoon. Very distinguished panelists and moderator today. Very kind of you, senior colleagues. Sri G. Gurucharan, Director, Public Affairs Center. Sri Atul Kumar Tiwari, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Dr. VP Singh, Additional Central Provident Fund Commissioner, Employees Provident Fund Organization. Sri Kuldeep Kumar, Principal, Pricewaterhouse and Company LLP. Sri Vikram Shroff, Head HR Laws, Nitish Desai Associates. Distinguished speakers, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, people who are joining us today online across the world, across the country. So today we gathered here virtually to discuss on the important subject of issues of social protection and analysis of social security agreements. As you know that the present circumstances, especially this last few months because of COVID pandemic, the issue of this social security is much more important. We know that so many migrants have to come back and they lose jobs. So many issues associated. For the last couple of months, we have been discussing the issues related to it. But coming to this area of social security agreement, we are very glad that the real experts dealing with these subjects are here today. We are really looking forward to learn from you, especially because being though MEA is also part of it in engaging and discussions and agreements we negotiate with various countries, but it is a subject, still a technical subject. We would be really happy to learn more today. So generally, as most of us are aware that social security agreements are instruments where two countries allow the provisions which prevent dual contribution of social security, provide exportability of benefits to third countries, prevent loss of benefits, that is totalization, application of insurance period. Which I want to mention, important security agreements, they found to be very effective and valuable for both the employer and employees. So this especially ensuring the viable safety net for the people who returning to their native country, the source country, and protecting the rights of citizens overseas. It ensures the social equality of migrants. That is the most important and the close to heart, because we deal with the subject of migrants, so that becomes more relevant. So India so far has entered into such social security agreements in about 20 countries. The first agreement was with Belgium in 2009. I'm not going to list out all the countries, but we have a substantive number, that is 20 with countries across the world. In addition to this social security agreements, the Ministry of External Affairs has taken various initiatives to protect our migrants and our workers and our professionals abroad. These include some of the measures which I'm going to list today, with reference to the blue-collar workers who are going to countries where the immigration check is required. We have signed an introduction of an agreement called minimum referral wages, so that the minimum wage is protected, that employers do not go below that. That is one way of protection which we have for our migrants. But in addition to that, we also want to expand opportunities for Indian migrants from rather the traditional areas like Gulf Cooperation countries, Middle East, and some of the Southeast Asian countries. But we are looking at really the countries where so far it is not explored at the level of blue collar workers. So far it is in the category of high skilled workers, especially in the Europe. So we started the concept of migration mobility partnership agreements. So we have been discussing with various countries, but in 2018 we entered into agreement, and it is ratified by Indian Parliament with France. So in addition to this French mobility migration partnership agreement, there are many in pipelines which include Portugal, UK, so the list is going to, and of course, the recent entrant is Australia. So this is one additional layer which we're looking at. It doesn't cover SSAs, but it's a very comprehensive way of ensuring their smooth stay and return in case they have to return. In addition to that, we in collaboration with various agencies, including MSDE and NSDC, we also give the soft skills before the Indian labor goes abroad. It is called pre-departure orientation training program. So which included two parts. We also train the trainers and we train the migrants directly. So we have a huge ambition of 5 lakh migrants to be trained by end of 2022. So far we have 28 such training centers across the country. So to meet that huge task, we are planning to expand the number of PDOT centers from 28 to about 100 plus. So that is the area where we want to give soft skills. But of course, without limiting to soft skills, we also want to give some specific skills where the countries and the potential exists for such skills. For example, recently, couple of days ago, the Cabinet of Government of India has approved signing of agreement with Japan, which is really a niche subject where the 14 sectors have been identified. For those sectors, they will conduct particular tests to test the competence level, the work skill, and also the Japanese language skill. So after that, they will be recruited by the Japanese companies. So that is going to be signed in a couple of days. In addition to this, of course, there are other various mechanisms to take care of the migrants once they reach there, but I think that is not much relevant, so I do not go into detail. To briefly point that we have a scheme called Madad and the grievance and by the respective Indian missions. We also have Indian Community Welfare Fund, which is basically created out of the consular services Vijay 10, and every mission has independence to decide and extend assistance in the people who are in need, especially in a situation like COVID, which people stranded, people become suddenly homeless and they're in trouble. So to cite an example of this particular assistance which we spent in the last few months was about 34 crore rupees to help people to provide boarding, lodging, etc. And of course any medical needs. So I think these are the measures which we have in general, but as I said that it is an important subject of social security, which is technical, but it is worthwhile to discuss as a generalist also, so that we see that that part is also taken care in the part of the total protection which we want to give to the migrants. So with these few words, I once again warmly welcome the moderator and panelists. We really look forward to hear from you and learn from you. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing again. Thank you so much. Surabhi?
Thank you, sir. Now I would introduce our moderator who though requires no introduction as he is fairly well known among our audience. Sri Gurucharan is Director of Public Affairs Center in Bangalore, which is a not-for-profit think tank established in 1994. He is a former civil servant who retired as Secretary to Government of India in December 2016. And he has served as lead negotiator for various bilateral agreements related to international migration and social security, and has also represented India at various international forums such as Global Forum on Migration and Development, the Colombo process, India-EU high-level dialogue on migration, and I could go on. He was also instrumental during the inception of ICM and has also served its director. And in 2004 and 5, he was a visiting fellow at the Center for Public Policy at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. Gurucharan sir would be introducing the panelists as we go, but I would now hand over the proceeding to our moderator for the day, Sri Gurucharan.
Thank you, Surabhi. Thank you very much. Let me begin by commending the Ministry of External Affairs OIA division and the ICM for the choice of this theme, issues of social protection in the context of international mobility. There couldn't have been a better time to discuss some of the issues that have arisen in the past couple of years, which impact international mobility. We have a very distinguished and balanced panel, just as we have a very distinguished list of participants. I noticed that there are some true experts. I want to acknowledge Professor Binod Adria, who is a participant. I see that Meera Sethi, former IOM, is there. Sita Sharma is there, and many others are here. So I'm sure it's going to be a very good panel discussion. So let me very quickly introduce the panel. Atul Tiwari, Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Skill Development, but more important, he was Joint Secretary, Overseas Indian Affairs, and he negotiated some of the more important social security agreements. Besides being a civil servant, he's also a scholar. He's written about social security and the challenges in implementation of social security. Then we have Dr. VP Singh, the Additional Central Provident Fund Commissioner. And what is important is he actually heads the International Workers Unit in the EPFO. And he's the key person who will be responsible, or who is responsible, for issuance of the certificate of coverage, for coordinating with countries of destination, counterpart institutions, and so on. We also have Mr. Kuldeep Kumar, who is from the PricewaterhouseCoopers. He's a principal there. A lot of his work has been on transborder mobility of workers and very important practitioner issues relating to cross-border movement of people. And then we have Mr. Vikram Shroff, who is the HR law team of Nishit Desai Associates. And his specialization is employment and labor law. So you can see that the panel brings together specific streams of expertise, which I believe is going to help us try and address some of the key issues. Now, some rules of engagement. We have 45 minutes for the panel discussion. So I would suggest that each panelist take about 10 minutes, but in 2 rounds. You could start with 5-6 minutes opening remarks, and then I'll come back to you for a second round. We also have a Q&A for about 25 minutes, and I'm sure the panelists will have many questions from the audience. Just to set the context and kickstart the discussion, I want the panelists to ponder 3 broad questions relating to migration and social security. Let's start with asking the question. It's been about 12 years since we signed the first SSA. And as the Joint Secretary pointed out, we already have about 15 or 16 SSAs that have been concluded at different points in time. So a good question to ask after this lapse of 12 years is, has it really enabled greater mobility of skilled and semi-skilled workers from India to other countries? Has it also enabled the workers and the employers who send these workers to benefit from the social security agreements? And in this backdrop, I'm going to raise 3 questions for the panelists to address while they speak. One is a conceptual question. Is it time that we looked at an integrated agreement which looks at the movement of goods, services, and people? Because it is really, we live in a world where the mobility of goods and services is seen as a virtue, but greater barriers are being raised for movement of people. So should we look at a seamless movement of goods, services, and people as a symbiotic process, and therefore perhaps look at an integrated agreement which combines trade issues, mobility issues, and social security issues? That's one question. Second is, all of us know that India doesn't have a comprehensive, universal, tax-based social security system as obtains in the European Union member states or in the United States of America. Is it time that India started looking at a structure, a social security structure, which is tax-based and which is comprehensive, so that we are comparing apples with apples when we negotiate bilateral agreements? And finally, the third question is more an operational question. That is, the SSA provides the broad framework for cooperation and coordination of social security. But the real teeth of the social security agreement is in the administrative agreement between the institutions in India, in this case the EPFO, and the counterpart institutions in the country of destination. Because all the details are in the devil, and the details really are about certificates of coverage, what is the period of time of the employee working in that country, and so on and so forth. So can we find a more robust administrative coordination arrangement for operational effectiveness? I'll stop here and I'll invite Dr. Atul Tiwari first to give a quick 5 to 6 minute opening remarks, because he was, after all, in the government when many of these agreements were concluded. Atul.
Thank you very much. Thank you and good afternoon to all the participants. At the outset, I must say that I learned about the SSA from our esteemed moderator, Mr. Gurucharan. And then while we were there in MOIA, we took it to a larger number of SSAs. And I'm saying that whatever I'm saying is relevant for the 3 questions which have been posed by our moderator today. One is that, like we did with Japan or Korea, the SSAs, they were part of the trade pacts. We can call them in different terms, but the SSAs were a part of the overall economic engagement between the 2 countries, that was India and Japan, India and South Korea. So I would assume that we have an instrument, although not so clearly delineated, which looks into the bilateral engagement in terms of goods, in terms of services, in terms of people. And generally, the people part is the most difficult thing to ensure because of so many other factors which have their own cycles of ebb and flow. We also realized during the negotiations, as pointed out by Mr. Gurucharan, is that we were, what shall we say, punching much above our weight, in a sense that if you look into the social security systems of, say, Japan or European Union countries, you realize how deficient we were. And as I have noted in my article as well, we have a patchwork of social security agreements, and which needs to be made into a proper blanket so that the people who need it most can use it. So the question for me is, and third is that we don't have the current data of the COC, certificate of coverage data. I tried to get that data when I was writing my paper, which was 2 years after I left the ministry, and we realized that we need to do something more with the International Workers Division of the EPFO, and they need to engage in a more systematic manner with the countries with which we have the SSA. So data capture, trying to remove the difficulties, and if there is some problem is there in the administrative arrangement, sir, as Mr. Gulcharan will agree that other than the administrative agreement, we also have the forms which needs to be shared. This is the third level of the detailing which generally is done. And maybe the present JS OIA can look into that and see that whether we have gone to that level of details, which is having an agreement, signing an administrative arrangement, and going into the forms, which requires a great amount of deliberation, and more so because each one of us has to overcome the organizational obstacles which we put before us. So coming back to you, sir, 3 points. I would say that in fact, the France Mobility Partnership, which the JS was mentioning, that also Mr. Gurucharan knows, and I certainly know that there was a long thought process behind that, and that thing needs to be taken further. Now that I'm in skills ministry and the JS was talking about the Japan, etc., there is a need to have this kind of mobility partnerships with the countries which are major trade partners, so that there is a two-way flow of the benefits and information between the two countries. So coming to your question, sir, finally, is that yes, there is an integrated agreement is required, and there is somebody should look into that in a holistic way. Second, we need to improve our Indian social security system. A lot of things have happened since I and Mr. Gurucharan left the ministry, and that need to be pulled around. Maybe it would have been done, I'm not aware. And thirdly, the SSA needs to be implemented, and the data needs to be captured along with the immigration data and the employment data. And then only we can understand the efficacy, which is that whether it has enabled greater mobility or whether it has benefited. So I'll leave it at that, sir, and I look forward to hear the other participants as well.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you very much. I'll just flag one issue for the participants, especially some of the academics, and some of the practitioners like Meera Sethi. After the panel is over, perhaps during the Q&A session, we could look at, can we merge the trade agreement with the mobility agreement and the social security agreement together? Look at an integrated one. And then the second issue is, could we also look at, instead of signing with individual countries, can we say, for instance, seriously consider an SSA with the EU as a whole, India and the EU as a whole? I'll now move to Dr. VP Singh of the EPFO. He really deals with the nuts and bolts of the social security agreements, because he's at the hard end of the stick. He really needs to deal with his counterpart institutions. So Dr. VP Singh, I'm sure everybody's looking forward to listening to you. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful meeting being organized by the ICM. And I will thanks to chairman of the ICM, who is not there at present, but might have taken the lead in organizing this type of the panel discussion, particularly for this thing, issue of the social protection. Atul Kumar Tiwari ji, Additional Secretary from his Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Piyush Gupta, Director. Abba Ghani Ramu ji, Joint Secretary. Deep Kumar ji from PwC. Vikram ji Shroff and other participants, and various from the industry chambers and some other participants. It is a wonderful place where we are sitting together, and I would like to congratulate that this is an important issue and assumed unprecedented significance in this global world. I would also like to express my gratitude toward the CEO for providing me an opportunity to express myself on this platform. We hope that this interaction between the various stakeholders shall be useful and able to satisfy the queries of related to the parties. Also provide us valuable inputs, feedback for bringing further improvement and fine-tuning our service standard to the international workers and the establishments. EPFO is really the largest social security organization in the world. MEA is a competent authority to negotiate and sign the social security agreement. EPFO is being the competent institution for India to implement the SSAs being entered into by the MEA. As per the data available, United Nations Population Division, the number of the international migrants in the world had reached to a total number 272 million. India has emerged as one of the leading country of origin from immigrants across the world with 17.5 million international migrants as per the data of 2019. At the same time, number of the migrants living in India is estimated to be around 5 million. EPFO for the month of November 2020, migrants from 152 countries are contributing social security social schemes administered by the EPFO. This is a very big number. That is 152 countries. The migrants from 152 countries are contributing the social security schemes administered by the EPFO. And top 3 countries, USA, UK, China. India has signed 20 social security agreements. Out of 20 agreements, 19 have already entered into force. The latest is SSA with Brazil, which was signed very latest, that is on 25th of January 2020, is yet to enter into force. Further, negotiations are going on with the Philippines, Spain, Russia, China, Poland, Cyprus, Sri Lanka, Peru, Argentina, and Uruguay. The majority of Indian workers going abroad are going to work in the countries like USA, UK, where we do not have any type of the SSA, where we would like that the MEA should look into, so that the benefit of the larger number of Indians working in the USA and UK should also get the social security. Not only the migrants, but also the established from where they are moving, they should also get the benefit of once the SSA have been entered into. SSA are bilateral instrument that coordinate the social security schemes of 2 contracting parties to ensure the continuity of the social security coverage of migrant workers. The purpose of the SSA is, everybody knows who are all participants, that to promote the circular migration by the securing social security benefits. The SSA aids the migrant worker to overcome on a reciprocal basis the barriers that might otherwise prevent migrant workers and the members of their families from receiving benefit under the system of any of the contracting parties in which they have worked. The comprehensive SSA contains the following key principles, that is equality of the treatment, detachment, totalization of the benefit, portability of the pension, the role of the EPFO, the issue of the certificate of coverage, that is very important, under which my establishment in India and the international workers coming from the counterpart countries are also getting the benefit to not to contribute in both the countries. Under the detachment clause, the COCs are the instrument through which the detachment comes into play. The employees who is going abroad initiate the process by applying online on the EPFO International Workers Portal. The employer attests and forward the application online to the EPFO regional office. The EPFO regional office issues the COC, which is uploaded on the IW portal by EPFO. The uploaded COC is available for viewing and download to the applicant establishment, also the competent agencies of the SSA countries. Recently, in order to further expedite the process, we have introduced the use of the e-sign in the COC software, which obviates the need to print, sign, and upload the physical copies which are being faced by the various establishments till now. We are working to facilitate more and more, not only to employees but also the establishment from where the migrant employees are going for different countries. To give the consent on the references received from the competent institutions of the SSA countries to allow detachment for an extended period beyond the original period of as specified in the SSAs. We are calculating the pension entitlements and benefit by applying the provisions relating to totalization and payment thereof. We also pay the social security benefit of the PF accumulation and insurance under the respective schemes. Export social security benefit in the country of choice of the IW. EPFO has an arrangement with the SBI Parliamentary Street branch for sending the payments abroad, providing administrative assistance to the competent institutions of the SSA countries. This may be by way of the lodgement of the documents, verifying the claims, sending medical report, etc. Ensure social security coverage, compliance of the foreign national working in India. IW are applying for the COC, file their claims, view their passbooks, submit nominations online. These are the facilities we are giving. But the challenges we are facing, and we should take up at this point of time, so that all will consider it, so that this where the problems of the international workers that can be taken further also. We know that the legislative scope of all the SSAs cover legislation providing for old age, permanent pension, disability pension. It does not include other branches of social security like medical sickness, maternity, and unemployment, etc. As the SSA countries have their own system of the medical facilities which are provided on the actuals at the place of the residence of an employee, they have to contribute in the host country for these benefits. In the present situation, only the workers who are working in the organized sector in India and going abroad to the country having SSA with India are being allowed the continuity of the social security through the SSAs. As we do not have a social security scheme for the self-employed in India, a large number of the self-employed workers are not able to get the benefit of these SSA. Further, only those employees working in the establishment covered under the EPFO are able to avail the benefit of the SSA, while those who are working in the establishment having less than 20 employees establishment are excluded from the purview of the EPFO, are deprived. The need and importance of the social security was brought to the fore during the pandemic times, when the large number of the employees lost their job but were without any social protection, thereby leading to the benevolence of government of the day to come their rescue. We feel that we need to universalize the social security coverage in India so that any Indian citizen going to work in an SSA country is able to avail the benefit of the SSA. We expect that the implementation of Social Security Code is able to bridge the gap and provide all the citizens of India the benefits of the SSA on equal footing. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Dr. VP Singh. That was a very comprehensive intervention. You covered several points of concern. Let me now move to Mr. Kuldeep Kumar from the PricewaterhouseCoopers from a practitioner's perspective. So, Mr. Kuldeep Kumar, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Gurcharan, and good afternoon to everyone. And it's a very good opportunity for me to also to learn from the experience and also the challenges or the other things that are happening. But first of all, I would like to compliment to the EPFO because the Indian Social Security is one of the largest in the world. And I think not now, probably I think a decade before, other countries have come and looked at us Social Security, that how actually the India is running this program, and that too without a technology. But I think now with the technology, our EPFO has become much stronger and better. And I must compliment Dr. Singh for that. And I would like to give an example. Actually, in the COVID situation, for example, the EPFO came with a scheme that within 3 months, up to 3 months of salary, you can take the advance. And I have seen that the international worker who has come from the USA, he got the money just in 3 days. And I think this is something very, very, nice, and which gives a very, kind of a transparent kind of a messaging to the globe that how India is actually coming up in terms of its policy. But otherwise also, I think, Mr. Gurcharan, you asked a question that how the Social Security agreement has been helping. And I must say that in several of the client conversation, when, they are sending their assignees to outside India, their employees outside India, and when they look at their Social Security benefit, now the conversation happen, oh, can we take the certificate of coverage and how much money we can save on that? And I think that it is beneficial both to the employee, because if they are going there for the shorter period, say 3 to 5 years, and finally they have to come back into India, and their contribution to the Indian social security continues. And second is that they are not required to make contribution overseas. By virtue of this, our worker category is very competitive as compared to the other countries. So I think these are the benefit, and where we see that a good progress is being made. Of course, there are a number of agreement. I think since probably from 2017 onwards, there has not been much of the progress, but I heard that the negotiation is going on with the US, with the UK, and I think if these two countries get added, probably we will see a whole bunch of benefit coming to a larger section of the international worker, because a lot of workforce is actually working in those countries. I think one of the point, Mr. Gunjan, you raised a very good point, that goods, services, and people movement. And I think India already thought about that. And if you will see, we have a immigration scheme which called a permanent residency, which is called an investor visa. And if someone is investing in India up to 10 crore within 18 months or 25 crores over a period of 3 years, and if they employ 20 or more people, then they are given the permanent investor visa to stay in India. And I think that this is right. I don't know actually how many of investor has used that, but I believe that directionally this was a very positive step. And I think going forward, as the globe is maturing, our global economy is maturing, we will see probably more progress will be happening in that direction. And the second thing, we made a very good point, and which I have been very advocated for a long time, that is the tax-based social security system. So no doubt India is still a very large country. I mean, our states are actually equal to or even bigger than some of the European countries. So looking at that, large large work base. I mean, when I say that, I am also covering the self-employed individuals. And then if you compare that, how many of are actually paying the taxes? I mean, those who are paying taxes, say more than filing return for more than 1 crore, are not even hardly even more than 100,000 people. So I think with that kind of a tax differential and having a tax-based social security system could be a game changer. Now, how one can think of that? Now today, if those who are paying the taxes, they overly complain, I'm paying honestly taxes, what I'm getting to back. But I think that if we come out with a scheme that if you are paying the taxes, and when you are out of job or when you are retiring, that this is the way you are getting, you will be getting the benefit, whether it's an unemployment benefit, whether it's the form of a pension or other benefit. I think that could be a game changer. And then you can think of that situation, because the money which is lying in the EPFO is guaranteed by the government, and where these individuals are investing money into the private sector or in the other scheme, even their money or their return is not actually the safe. So I think if this kind of a scheme will come, and I think this will also help from the tax side also, when you see that by paying the taxes, their future is getting secured, they will be getting the benefit. We will also see the finance level will go up, and people will not only file the return, but they will also happily pay the taxes. So I think this is a very good, absolutely thumbs up. I think this is a very right time, and more particularly when India is a young country and we are having the young working population, I think these are the major probably where we need to move fast. And the third point which you mentioned, sir, was the at institutional level interaction between the EPFO and the similar institution in the overseas. So I do not know actually at ground to what extent it is happening, but I have a very positive experience on that. For example, where somebody who has completed 5 years of certificate of coverage, when that period has expired, when the extension is required, then that extension can take place with the mutual consent of the competent authorities. So we have seen that when these applications were moved with the EPFO and their coordination with their overseas counterpart, it was a pleasant experience, and in 1.5 months this was done. So I think that on these front, probably the good things are happening. I think directionally, I think over a period of time, I'm confident that the good results will come. I think overall scheme of the Social Security Agreement benefit, these are on reciprocal basis, and we understand that what is in India, we have a provident fund and a pension, which is basically a defined contributory scheme. But while if we go to the other countries like the European countries, we have whether it's medical coverage, whether it's insurance, unemployment benefit, there are several other benefits. So I think on the reciprocal basis, whatever benefit we are giving, and these are being very nicely negotiated. But I think as and when India will strengthen its own social security system, I think probably those benefit of avoiding contribution for those other items in overseas will also probably look that way. I think overall scheme is strategically good, but I think on operational side probably things need to be done in a better way. So, for example, today if somebody is applying the certificate of coverage, everything is happening online. I think that is fantastic, but I think still the processing take a time of 2 to 3 months, and by the time the employee lands up in the overseas territory, they end up actually paying the social security contribution because they are not having the certificate of coverage. I think if that timeline can be reduced, probably could be a good thing. And the other thing is. The other thing is that we are talking about the outbound. I think for the inbound also. Let me come back to the inbound. And for the inbound, when these individuals are working, normally these are the CEOs, CFOs, very skilled people who are working, and they not only now contribute to the social security, but they also pay to our taxes. So right now there is no cap on the contribution. I mean, whatever the salary these international workers are getting, they have to contribute on the full salary. Now there are two things what need to think through. One is that when they are contributing a higher contribution, obviously when the EPF is giving a return of 8.5%, I don't think that that kind of return is available anywhere in the world. And second is that now with this COVID situation, now where the people are working from home, from a distant location, even that model is becoming very tested. And when we see the contribution of employer and employee, which is 24%, and we take the tax gross up impact, the social security cost is actually equal to the tax cost. And now sometimes we are seeing that this could be a barrier now where such a senior resources probably may choose to work from the overseas location, and in which case India will lose its share of taxes. This is one. And second, when they will work from there and when they will charge the India for rendering the services a fee, India will actually be making them the payment for those services availed. So I think probably not at I will say at an EPFO level, I think at a finance ministry level and Ministry of Labor, I think some sort of a coordination, some sort of a thought process need to be there so that India benefit from its share, whatever it is contributing to the global economy. And the second, when I'm talking about the taxes, I think from taxes also it's very important. There should be clarity. For example, in the social security agreement, some of the agreement, there's a clause that you can obtain the certificate of coverage if you are working in another territory as employee of the entity or as employee of the entity in the other territory. It means that your employer-employee relationship is not severed, or they continue to be employee of the overseas company, and that creates a permanent establishment kind of a risk, which is a tax issue. And we know that tax everyone is scared of, and sometimes to avoid this tax issue, then they do not go for a certificate of coverage route. And second is that, for example, where someone is now making the withdrawal of an advance from the PF authorities. So although the FAQ say that this is not taxable, but in the tax law there is no such exemption provided over there. I think from a tax perspective also, probably if that kind of a linkage clarity is provided alongside, that would be a very, very good thing. And another example of coordination is that where the people are coming from a non-SSA country, now they can withdraw money after 58 years. So someone who has come into India at the age of 30, 35, left India, of course he has a right to receive this money in 58 years, but he has to realize this money into the Indian bank account. Now but the moment the individual is leaving India, he cannot maintain his bank account because he is not working in India. So still the banks are not permitting them to hold their bank account. And after 58, when they will try to open the bank account by sitting outside India, it is going to be a challenge for them to fulfill the KYC norm. I think directionally also we should think something in terms of policy framework that how this can be addressed, so that that will infuse the more confidence that the people should not think globally that the money which has gone to the PF, it is lost, but it is their money and India is a custodian of that money. And the last point,
if I may interject, I'll come back to you for the remaining points. We'll go. Okay. I'll move now to the next panelist because we are constrained by time. I'll come back to you in the second round. You can cover the balance points you have. I'll now move on to Vikram Shroff. Vikram, if you could give your initial comments over the next, say, 7 to 8 minutes, and then I'll come back to you for a second round.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Mr. So thank you, Dr. It's a pleasure to be with all of you and listening to your thoughts. Some great points came up. Thank you, Kuldeep, as well. You've summarized really well from the legal and tax perspective all the issues that we are facing. Obviously, it's in everyone's mind and in our interest to be looking to have similar agreements with US and UK as well, because that's the bulk of the share of people and the sort of trade with India. But one point that was raised earlier, that is this the right time to relook at the structure? We know that India was a late entrant to the world of social security and totalization agreements. And this whole process started back in 2008. And that's when we started signing the social security agreements with various countries. And because we were a late entrant, we ended up, in a way, adopting to the type of agreements that some of these countries, especially in Europe, already had with other countries. And today we are, we've obviously made progress over the last 12 years or so. But these are all individual agreements, and honestly, the sort of overall feeling is that it's difficult to sort of understand, especially how these agreements work in the general sense, because you have to look at each agreement to sort of determine the benefits, the coverage, the sort of protections, the transportability, exportability, totalization, all that. And I think what has happened is it's kind of become quite confusing at this point. And if we continue with individual countries, it's going to be more and more confusing. So somewhere I think the point is whether we can look at signing agreements with not individual countries, but associations like EU, which will cover all the countries, or SAARC sort of region or something like that, so that it's easier for people to understand and implement. And Kuldeep made a very good point about losing benefits. We deal with a lot of expats in terms of structuring their arrangements. And there is a general sense, and I do agree, in terms of the views that Dr. Singh has provided, that the whole EPF scheme is far better over the last 5 years, especially after digitization, than it was previously. But I think there is still a general sense of the fact that I will never really get that money back. I can't really wait for 58 years, and therefore the cost of sending an expat to India becomes much higher because of the general sort of feeling that that money is as good as gone. So obviously there needs to be some sort of messaging and some marketing, if I may say so, to kind of demonstrate to expats, how the system works, maybe promote it in some way or the other, so that people get the sort of awareness. I think that's really lacking. And also, I think it will take some years, because it's just about 10 to 12 years. But when people start reaching the age of 58 and the money has to go back to them wherever they are, I think it will kind of, those examples will give greater confidence amongst the overall expat community in terms of the whole Indian social security system. I also want to add that this is indeed the right time to relook at the whole arrangement, because the whole sort of, national level labor laws adopted the codification process. The Ministry of Labor and Employment has been active in codifying 29 national level labor laws, and that also includes the EPF Act, which is being codified into the Code on Social Security. So from a timing perspective, this is the right time, at least because we are relooking at our labor laws and including the laws on social security, and how, as a part of this process, can we make it easier for under our labor laws to promote and attract international talent to the country, given that with the COVID lockdown, and the whole world of work has changed quite substantially. It is likely that these kind of arrangements will continue going forward, where employees will work from different countries remotely rather than really being physically present in that office. We did see over the first 6 to 8 months of the COVID situation where a lot of employees of foreign countries were stuck in India. They couldn't go back, so they were forced to work in India. Likewise, Indian employees were stuck abroad and they could not come back. Also, we continue to see that happen because of the, for example, the Trump administration has stopped the H-1B route temporarily till March 31st, and therefore a lot of Indian employees as in Indian citizens who were on H-1B are currently in India. They are not really able to go back. So this is again a great opportunity as to how can we look at the whole arrangement. We do not know how the new presidency sort of rule in the US will look at the whole H-1B. But this, at least the way we look at it, is the ideal time to be attracting foreign talent and make the India growth story. How we believe that we will be able to reach a $5 trillion economy. I have a few points here, but I'm also sort of wary of the time that we have, and I'm happy to add those points as we go later.
Thank you, Mr. Shroff. That's been a very good first round. While moving to the second round of quick summing up, we have about 10 minutes or so before we throw it open for the participants' questions. I just want to clarify a couple of points that have come up. One is, both Kuldeep and Shroff spoke about the need to sign an agreement with the United Kingdom. I want to clarify that that is not necessary. This has been considered by the government. The UK law provides that the qualifying period is just 1 year. That means if you have lived and worked in the United Kingdom for 1 year and contributed to the social security system there, then you are entitled to all of the benefits that an SSA provides. There is portability, there is withdrawal, you can draw on any of the benefits. And that's one of the reasons why there is no need for bilateral agreement with the UK. With regard to the United States, it's really much more complicated. This has been going on for almost 12, 15 years. The negotiations have been going on. And one of the reasons why the US is not willing to sign an SSA with us is that from a cost-benefit analysis perspective, it's not to their advantage to sign one. There are barely 25,000 or maybe 30,000 American workers, detached workers, you might describe them as, against 300,000 Indian workers in detached workers in the United States. The second thing is that, that is the most difficult agreement for us. We need to negotiate, somehow find a way. The only way might be to actually use a political economy approach and link our need for a social security agreement with the United States to an important agreement that the US might want with us, and say that it has to be a quid pro quo. Otherwise, I don't see how we're going to be able to move forward with the US. I don't know if Atul is still there, but I'd like to bring Atul in for a final summing up. He wanted to leave at 4 o'clock. So before he leaves, Atul, over to you. Okay, he seems not to be there. There is.
Sir, he's around, but I think his mic is muted.
Okay. As host, can you unmute his mic and maybe ask him?
Yes, sir, I've unmuted him, but
So, Atul, can you hear me? And would you like to make some final comments before you leave the meeting? Because you said you wanted to leave at 4 o'clock. Meanwhile, for all the participants and the panelists, there's a
Sir, he's
question.
back.
Okay. Atul, any final comments, closing comment before you leave? Would you like to say something about your efforts with the United States?
Sir, you have rightly pointed out that we need to make a special case for United States, and due to the changing political environment, things are getting more and more difficult. It is for the MOIA and the Ministry of Commerce, all Niti Aayog, all put together to make a claim for that. So that is one, sir. Second point is, before I leave, sir, there are 2-3 points I would like to say about SSA. From the, it appears like what Mr. Shroff has said and Mr. Kuldeep Kumar has said. They have highlighted some very key points, which have remained quite imponderables ever since we started the SSA, which is having a standard, modified and improved template for the SSA agreements, which include the, for example, like the France, we have health insurance is included, it is not. So how to make one standard template which takes into account 2-3 things. One is the medical expenses, medical insurance. Second is how do we further define the self-employed or the professionals, as we call them. Then we also have a big problem about how to enlarge it beyond the detached workers. And the problem, which is the international workers, Indian international workers who come back to India, remains an issue, and also their bank accounts. So I would suggest that maybe in the next generation of SSAs, we look into that, and this thing can only happen with the different ministries talking to each other over a common platform. And that is how we used to do it earlier in MOIA. And we can find solution in that regard. If you recall, sir, that the International Worker Division of EPFO was a great help, and Mr. Singh, with his enthusiasm and positive words, certainly we can work on that as well. Since I am in the Skills Ministry, 1 or 2 things I would also like to add as a part of that is that so far we have been following a headcount-based approach in the migration and mobility. And it is necessary that we also have attribute-centric approach to the mobility, where quality, skills, qualifications, modes of engagement are also captured. Maybe going by the definition and template of SSA, it may not be possible, but perhaps as a what shall I say, adjunct, a corollary to the SSA, we can also think on those terms as well. As was pointed by the JSOIA, that they have an agreement with Japan, which we need to work with. Similarly, we also need to include somehow some arrangements whereby this apprenticeship, traineeships, etc. are also included. And more than that, we can also have the sector and occupation-centric agreements, like cruise industry, for example, like the medical care, healthcare kind of professionals. That kind of specialized approaches can also be taken, more so in the line with the skill ministry's worldview, in the sense that we would like to send more and more people with requisite skills and language proficiencies abroad to these countries. So perhaps we can also enlarge the ambit of the SSA and bring it to the attribute-centric approach, skilling, apprenticeship part, so that later in the course of time, it will also converge into the greater mobility partnership which we are envisaging. And I was very happy. I was not very happy when I heard Mr. Kuldeep Kumar say it was discounting the difficulties being faced by many things. Although he had said many positive words, but since we had negotiated SSS, I think that it is a great opportunities for doing it more. And a lot of things have happened, and perhaps there is a need for us after this discussion to sit with the OIA and develop new instruments and new levels of engagements which take into account the aspirations of our country as well as the changing realities in the rest of the world. Thank you so much, sir. It was very, very educating for me.
Thank you.
And I would like to join
Thank
again.
you, Atul. Thank you very much. Look forward to your further engagement. Dr. VP Singh, would you like to add some closing comments in a minute or so? I'll give you about a minute. If you have any important points to respond to the other panelists or anything that you would like to add. 1 minute. Dr. VP Singh. Dr. Singh, can you hear me?
Sorry. Dr.
Yeah, if you have anything to add, I'll give you a minute to quickly highlight some points.
Sir. As far as sir, 1 and 2 point what Kuldeep has raised and Vikram Shroff, 1 and 2 point he has also raised about the issue of the COC. We are continuously working upon it to facilitate in 1 or 2 cases where there is some problem happens with any of the establishment for getting their extension as well as the issue of the COC. Some time has taken by some of the offices. We are working on this to develop some of the dashboards so that we can get the information as early as your any employees filing application for the COC. As soon as the application is put on the site, it will come on our notice. My office will be having by sitting at the head office, keeping the watch, the movement of the application, and I will ensure that the whatever the applications have been submitted by the establishments will be settled, will be approved finally within the 3 days. As per the scheme provisions, they are not required to take more than 7 days, but in some of the cases, it is taking even 1 month, more than 1 month. I will ensure by monitoring, by sitting over here to the IT facilities, so that these problems which being faced during the implementation of this thing, so we will take care of. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. VP Singh. Kuldeep, you want to quickly? I'll give you another minute or so. Kuldeep Kumar.
No, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I have covered most of the point, but I wanted to say that when you said about the tax-based social security system, I think in a way it will also bring in the participation from the self-employed. And for the US side now, India is actually focusing on attracting the global manufacturing in India. I think the more and more manufacturing base once we have, then we will have more inflow of this, foreign nationals from the US. Probably that will help us to tighten our grip in terms of the also negotiation. And the last point which I want to make is on the COC, or I think if the training can be given to the field level officer at the various EPFO so that everybody has a seamless experience. So I think that probably this is a good progress, and I think that day is not away. Now the way we are seeing the faceless scrutiny, faceless audit, and filing of our tax return in a very automated electronic mode, I think that day would not be away. Probably where we will also see that benefit of technology happening in the EPFO as well. So with this, thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Gurcharan.
Sorry. Hello.
Vikram, if you have anything to add in terms of summing up before I throw it open.
Net connection is a bit low. Yes, I mean, obviously a lot of points will flow as of these discussions, and I'm sure there are lots more to be covered. I do have one last point, although I believe most of my points are sort of covered, that the EPFO website has a specific section on international workers. I think it's a great section because it does give the importance, it does demonstrate from our government's perspective that yes, we are taking care of international workers and we are promoting international workers to come in. But I think there could be some more efforts towards providing data of how successful the SSAs have been and how many international workers have been able to claim benefits under the SSA. Obviously not getting into names and any such sort of confidential information, but just in terms of data so that somebody who is looking to come to India as an international worker can feel more confident about the whole system. So in that section or elsewhere on the EPFO website, if we can provide some generic data and keep updating it on a regular basis in terms of the extent of benefits available by international workers who have sort of come to India, I think it will just give it a slightly more reality check.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you very much. I'll now throw it open for questions from participants. To kickstart it, let me mention two questions that have already been posed in the chat box. One of the questions was, what about the social security benefits of our workers in the Gulf? Many of you have returned who've lost their jobs, and is there some way of getting benefits for them? I just want to clarify that most of the GCC countries, in fact, almost all, I think, don't really have a social security system of the kind that Europe and the United States have. So there have never been any agreements on social security between India and the GCC countries. This is ironic because a very large number of our workers, particularly the skilled workers, are in the GCC countries. So instead, what Government of India has done, and the Government of India has done a lot of work, is one is they have signed MOUs for bilateral MOUs for workers. They've also created the welfare fund. They've created a contributory social insurance program and so on and so forth. I will not go into that. Perhaps Surabhi or the ministry people will be able to expand on that. The other question that's come in the chat box is about whether the social security agreement with Japan in its implementation will have some synergy with the mobility partnership that has been concluded with Japan by the Ministry of Commerce. I think there will be a lot of convergence between the two, because when skilled workers go from here, even if it's on an internship and later get absorbed under a specific skilled worker visa, they will be subjected to the social security law of that country. And therefore, if they are treated as detached workers and can obtain a certificate of coverage, then they will be able to benefit from the bilateral social security agreement. I'll now hand over to Surabhi. Surabhi, if you could coordinate the Q&A, because you are perhaps better equipped than I am. I want to thank all the panelists for the excellent panel discussion. Surabhi?
Yes. Anybody who is wishing to pose any question to the panel, I would request you to kindly unmute yourself and identify yourself and be brief and pointed in your intervention.
Yes. May I, Surabhi?
Yes, please introduce yourself. Briefly.
Yes. Yeah, my name is Rafiq Rautar. I am representing Center for Indian Migrant Studies. Can you hear me?
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Rafiq Rautar. I am representing Center for Indian Migrant Studies. We are based in Kerala, Kochi. Respected sirs, I have a big concern about the returning migrant workers. They reached here after COVID. We heard that around 16 lakh migrant workers returned, and in Kerala we have 8.5 lakh. And out of that, 5.5 lakh people registered as they lost job. So lots of complaints about wage theft. Wage theft was reporting during this time. So our concern was, during the Vande Bharat mission, the government of India never asked a single question about why they are returning, why they want to come back. What was the issue of return? So if there was a question, this thing actually I emailed to the ministries. If there was a question about what was the reason for their return, we could have at least get their issues. Now this almost 16 lakh people in India. Do we have any plan to approach them? What is the reason for their return? How they are going to plan? How they are planning for their future? What is their plan for in return to Gulf states or any other parts of the world? And so the concern over their family and the returning migrant worker is a big issue. And what is the plan for Government of India to think about these people? Thank you very much, Surabhi.
Thank you, Rafiq. I believe it's a bit digressing from the today's topic, but I think when Vande Bharat was launched, people were asked the reasons for return initial phase when they had to register for the flights. However, that is a separate topic, and we will deal with it. If anybody else has intervention, I will request you to kindly turn on your mic and introduce yourself.
Hello, Surabhi. Can I say something?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. It's a pleasure to see and meet Gurucharan again. The ICM, when it started, it was Gurucharan who was at the MOIA, and we had that project from Moya at Jawaharlal Nehru University. And I am reminded of the first international conference that we organized together on international partnership agreements with people from both academics and policymakers from 21 countries, 22 countries, if I'm not mistaken. I think the first three questions that Gurucharan has mentioned are quite insightful, and I would like to just touch upon the conceptual question that he posed in terms of integrated agreements on goods, services, and people's movement. And this is where I think we we tend to forget that a holistic approach becomes very, very important. Now, I have listened to this very carefully, this debate, and very informative, very incisive. And in terms of the focus, I found that it is more about the concern towards the expatriates coming to India rather than Indians, migrants abroad. Of course, you know, our people in the Gulf countries, semi-skilled people and so on are also mentioned. Our highly skilled people in United States and United Kingdom have the problems that in the United States you have to serve for 10 years to have your entitlements of Social Security back. And it is actually the government which benefits from this. And that, I think, is very important to understand, even to learn from countries like Singapore. So I am not going to go into those details, but we have to actually be able to identify the stakeholders. It is not only the individuals and the institutions, but also the state, the government that have a stake in this. So I think we need to address this maybe in a holistic way by linking, in the case of goods, services, and people. I think, you know, WTO we do have, but we are not referring to WTO issues at all. And then we also have GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Services. But at the same time, I would like to say in the domain of migration and the SSA, what is the latest? The latest is the GCM, Global Compact for Migration. That I think nobody has referred to. It has 23 objectives, and objective number 22nd is absolutely about this, you know, the social security and earned benefits. That I think we need to put our mind to and try to put it in a holistic basket that Gurucharan had mentioned. That's all that I want to say.
Yeah. Surabhi, I'd like to just make a small comment too.
Yes, Meera.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, it was a pleasure listening to Gurucharan after quite a while. I think I have also there's something similar to say, that an integrated approach to trade, mobility, and social security is extremely important, and it's the right time to move forward on it. There's been very little work done in this area. We have tried as practitioners going back to 2004 and 2005, when two conferences were held on trade and mobility, and then it was completely shut down after that because member states were not ready to come forward. 2008, the economic crisis was also, and momentum came in, but again, the debate did not go forward. Now, whilst Global Compact and GFMD could have brought these issues in, brought in trade as well as labor mobility, I'm afraid to say it has not happened. So this is really something which is very much needed. It's happening at the bilateral level. States have got agreements, trade agreements with labor issues linked in, but these have a different impact when you look at high-skilled labor or whether you look at low, semi-skilled labor. So this is something that we really, I think, as ICM, is a debate that could go further as perhaps a sequel to this meeting that you have organized today, and very much appreciated, because this is really an area where there's a gap. Regional integration, labor mobility, and trade are extremely important, and the work is very ad hoc right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Meera. Are there any more questions to the panel?
Surabhi? Sita.
Yes, Sita. Yes.
Hi. Thanks, and thanks to all the panelists. I think it's been quite an interesting conversation. Also, conversations that we've not really been having much of in terms of social security. We've, of course, been doing some work around this. And I think one question that I'm trying to also grapple with myself is with the changes in the current laws, labor laws in the country. They do obviously have implications for the social security agreements because they are more comprehensive in coverage. And the question is actually, I guess, more to MEA than anyone else, that would they be now revisiting the existing social security agreements and re-looking them in the current context of the changed labor laws? And would they be then also looking at a template which is more holistic then?
Okay, point well taken. And anybody else?
You want me to
Yes, sir. Please go ahead. Please, sir.
Yeah, I think that is a valid suggestion that any particular format for any agreement needs to be revised and updated depending on the changing circumstances. The suggestion is well taken, and we will, of course, liaise with the Employment Provident Fund organization also to see that any revision is required to the standard format we have been using in terms of the changed labor laws, changed laws pertaining to the social security within the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramu, sir.
Surabhi, can I add something?
Yes, please.
I think it's a very interesting point. You know, I could stop myself from reacting to this. Now, with this codification of 29 laws into 4 and the social security being the more comprehensive, and the rules have already been notified and the scheme is yet to be notified. I think one of the significant change which has happened is on the salary, what is included in salary, and the way they have captured the 15% of the non-cash benefit, or where the allowances are more than 50% of the salary. So these are having a very typical impact on the international worker or inbound who are working in India. I think that's a very good opportunity to think about putting some cap over there or rationalizing that. Although from a social security agreement perspective, I don't think it will make much of the change, because once somebody takes a COC, whether in India or from abroad, I think those contributions under the domestic law happens in their own way. But I think from any of the changes probably which the EPFO wants to consider, I think this is a very good opportunity to implement right now. Thank you, Surabhi.
Okay. Any more questions? We have time for taking one or two more questions before I give the floor back to the panel for one last round of intervention.
Yeah, Surabhi, I have a point. Can you
Yes,
hear me?
Dr. Swami.
Yeah, Surabhi, the latest development in India is Social Security Code. Of course, some of the existing acts have been put together and made as a Social Security Code. So there are some provisions also listed there. So the question from me is, if a foreigner is coming to India for work, how it can be applicable with a linkage with Social Security Act? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so before I give the floor back to the panel, perhaps I would like to, especially Vikram and Kuldeep, to also ponder upon is the experience based on their interaction with their clients on Indian workers who go abroad, and what has been their experience in taking benefits out of these SSAs. So with that small addition to the questions from the floor, I would give 2 minutes each to each one of you to sort of respond back to the various questions raised. I would start from the end. So Vikram, you go first.
Okay, so lots of questions, and thank you all for participating. I do believe that we are awaiting further clarity on the provisions in relation to international workers under the Code on Social Security. And that basically means that at this point of time, we do not know whether those provisions will change or whether they will remain the same as they are. Any information that suggests that the provisions in relation to international workers will change in any way or that there will be any limit, but it all is based on what we eventually see. I do believe that once the Code on Social Security is implemented, they will continue initially with the EP, the Provident Fund scheme, where there are provisions in relation to the international workers. So assuming that happens at least for the foreseeable next year or so, there should not be any changes in relation to international workers. But having said that, yes, as I, consistent with the point I made earlier, and in view of some of the inputs that we've received from our participants, this is a good time to reconsider whether the policy change under Indian law in relation to international workers, which was introduced 12 years back, how successful that has been, or is it that India has been at the receiving end and we've not really gained anything, and therefore whether we need to relook at, how do we look at international workers going forward?
Okay. Kuldeep, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I think Vikram has covered for so long as for the international worker is concerned under the new Social Security Code. I think another question which actually, I think, so I have no more to add to that, but I think the other question which you added from a Social Security agreement, I think from the outbound perspective, I think it is working well. I think the on ground, the practical challenges which are there, which EPFO is already looking into the time taken or whether these kind of a certificate coverage can be even provided in a backdated manner. For example, if somebody has missed to do that. Now, since these are the Indian workers going abroad, I think we should probably be more liberal in terms of granting the relief, because that will help the Indian organization to, for their mobility workforce. And for the inbound, I think that we are not seeing, because of the tax issues or because of the other challenges, I think that trust level probably is not that much there, whether they will get their money back or not. But of course, even the people who are coming from the employees who are coming from the SSA countries, so they are a little hesitant to obtain the COC because of the provisions such as I mentioned earlier. If you can take the certificate coverage if you are going as employee of the foreign company and working in India, because those create a tax issues. So some sort of a blocker come, and we know that these are the highly skilled level and the CEO or CFO level. So from a tax angle, that creates a difficulty for them. And the second is in terms of, taking their money out, even those who are coming from SSA country. I think on a practical basis, there's a challenge because the department is either, for example, rejecting the online application or it is taking time. And even on the pension exportability, probably that guidance is not available to the clients. I mean, how it will happen. I think these are the practical challenges from the operational side. I think if these are addressed, I think probably we are on a very good, strong footing. And once we get the US into the loop, then we will see the full scale, benefit happening to the global mobile workforce in India. Over to you, Dr. Surbhi.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Dr. Singh, would you like to add any last comments?
Yes, I would like to comment upon it. Actually, as far as the legislation is concerned about the changes which are undergoing, so far the process is going on and the new schemes are to be notified. So far, whatever the available provision the scheme is going on will continue as such till the new provisions, whatever the changes will took place. I cannot comment upon it because it is going on in the different floor of the ministry and the department. EPFO also, EPFO team is also working upon it, and some changes may come and under consideration also, keeping in view the present provisions. And we're not going to comment right now as such. It is not required also, right time also to comment right now. One more thing I would like to mention here is that whatever he raised about the question of the time taken, we will assure him that whatever in such type of any cases where some time is being taken by some of the offices, I would like that instead of waiting for any comment, any positive, you can say solution from the specific offices. There may be one or two offices where some of the problems may be there. I don't know. But so far from the last 1 year, in the COVID period, I do not have any type of the information where some problem is being faced by anybody. Because had I been come in by our notice in the head office itself, I would have certainly intervened, and I will have whatever the intervention is required, would have certainly intervened and facilitated. And as far as I will tell you the inbound labor, if those who are coming from the any SSA country, they are not required to wait for time. As soon as they leave the job, they can settle their account immediately at the time of leaving the country. They can send online application here itself, and the payment can be made here in India. And in those cases, in case of the SSA country, if they go back to the country, even after that, if they apply for the claims, so we can make the payment in the host country of the origin, where they are going to back to their own country. Number two is that in case of the non-SSA countries, naturally, ultimate object of the Social Security Agreement is that those who are not having, the countries which are not having SSAs, we want that they should understand the ramification of not having the SSA. By having the SSA, these are the benefit to their employees coming from the SSA countries. And those countries which are not having SSA, they should also come forward, so that not only they will be benefiting by getting the advantage of double taxation, reducing the burden of the double taxation. Also, their employees, the international workers, will be getting the benefit then and there while going back to their own country. So these are the two things I wanted to mention. In addition to my Mr. Shishir Khan Jha will also add some more points. I will ask Mr. Jha, who is my colleague, he's also commissioner sitting in in the EPFO head office. He will also be saying some few points to clear the point he participated. Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Jha, please.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Already a few points have been made by Dr. Singh. One of the persons just raised a question regarding what are the benefits being paid to the expats. I mean, the people who are coming from the foreign countries. I think that's already taken care of. Still, even at the cost of repetition, I would like to say that who are going from India, they have the benefit of COC, and with that, he doesn't need to contribute to the social security system of the host country, thereby saving the cost both to the employee as well as to the employer. And for the people who are coming from an SSA country, when they come to India, they also come with the COCs. But if they are not coming with the COC, then they have to contribute in the system in India. But for them, the rules are quite liberal, and once they leave, once they complete their job, once they go back, they can take the payments in their accounts in India as well as into their overseas accounts. But the question rises in respect of those people who are coming from a non-SSA country. There the laws are stringent, and we are holding their money because we want to or we expect them to enter into an SSA with us. So we are also protecting our Indians going overseas for working. So there the payments are allowed only after 58. They attain the age of 58, or otherwise if they require some medical contingency. So there, as you raised some issues, Mr. Kuldeep raised some issues that they have some problems because they're not able to maintain their accounts in India. At present, we have these situations, but definitely this suggestion has been well noted. And we will see that once they have completed their 58 years of age and retired, how easily the money can be paid to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much for clarifying many of the operational issues. And with that, we come to an end of today's discussion. I would like to thank Sri Gurucharan, who really directed today's conversation and ensured we stick to the time. AS MSDE, who had to leave because of a prior engagement. Joint Secretary from EPFO, Sri Singh, Kuldeep, our Joint Secretary from OIA1, Sri Abbagani Ramu, Vikram, distinguished participants and friends. On behalf of India Center for Migration, it has been our pleasure to host these conversations every month because the idea is to chart a future course in terms of bridging the gaps in research. When we began planning for this discussion, we realized that there's a dearth of knowledge because of the technicality involved with respect to social security agreements. But perhaps now more than ever, it is critical to prioritize issues of social protection as we continue on the path of recovery in a post-COVID world. So against this backdrop, today we have been able to raise some very important points, and we'll keep note of that and try and initiate a follow-up dialogue to today's dialogue. I'm deeply grateful to all of you who have joined us today. And as is our custom, before we close, I would request all of you to kindly turn on your cameras so that we could take a virtual group snap.